So the first point, and I think this is the most crucial point to make, is that at any point in time when you have the leaders of both the United States and China meeting to have a conversation and to discuss this amazingly important bilateral relationship, it is a positive development. Everybody should be encouraging not just this event, but they should be encouraging more one-on-one meetings between China and the United States, not just at the presidential level, but across the entirety of government. And unfortunately, that's something that we have not really seen for quite some time. This is actually the first time that there has been an American president visiting China since 2017. Yes, President Xi Jinping and President Trump did meet in Busan, South Korea last year. This is the first state visit. So dialogue is critical, dialogue is important, and dialogue is good. Now, what should be expected from this meeting? Let me be very clear. Nobody has a clue, myself included. And yet what you will see right now, today is Tuesday, so we have 2 more days before the official visit happens. The entirety of American social media, American traditional media, everybody is talking about this event. And everybody has an opinion. Now, that's great. Again, dialogue is great, but let me provide what I think is some important insight that will allow others to look at what may or may not be possible for this Thursday-Friday visit. Earlier yesterday, on Monday, it was announced that the American Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessent, would be flying to Seoul, South Korea to meet with his counterpart, He Lifeng, to have conversations about the trade relationship. This is not great, because anytime you are going to have what we call a meeting of 2 principals, meaning the presidents of the 2 countries, everything is meant to be agreed to in advance of that meeting. So if you have Secretary Bessent and He Lifeng, Vice Premier He Lifeng, meeting in South Korea just days before President Trump and President Xi meet, that is, I think, a very clear indication that there are serious issues that have yet to be agreed to or resolved between the 2 sides. Now, why this is complicated is perhaps these 2 sides can meet in Korea and they can come to some sort of agreement on whatever is outstanding. But if you kind of know how China operates, it is, I believe, next to impossible for whatever the agreement is made at that level to go back to Beijing and for Xi Jinping and his team to be able to review the agreed upon principles and agreed upon points, and then ultimately have a discussion at a president-to-president level and reach some sort of conclusion. The Chinese, as I think we all know, tend to be more methodical. They're a bit slow. They want to truly assess whatever conversations are happening. So again, the fact that Secretary Bessent and He Lifeng are meeting in South Korea would indicate to me that there are serious issues that remain unresolved, which means it is almost impossible, unfortunately, for there to be any substantive agreements between Xi Jinping and Donald Trump. Now, this is partly and unfortunately the outcome of the United States being preoccupied with the ongoing war in Iran, in the Middle East. And when this original meeting was expected, I think it was supposed to happen in March, there was already concerns that there wasn't enough attention being paid by the American side to the details of the meeting. What was going to happen, who was going to come, what issues were going to be discussed. And again, to stress from the very beginning of this point here, the Chinese are known for wanting every single detail to be ironed out in excruciating detail prior to the 2 leaders sitting down. And this is not just with regard to China and the United States. This is when any head of state is meeting with a Chinese head of state. Now, allow me to provide a little bit of what I think is a positive outlook moving forward. This is going to be the first of 4 meetings that both President Xi Jinping and Trump will have over the course of this year. There's going to be another meeting in Shenzhen during the annual APEC meeting, which I think is going to be good. I'm excited to see an American president visit Shenzhen. It should be eye-opening. And then shortly thereafter, there will be a meeting for what's called the G20 in Miami. And during that G20 meeting, Donald Trump will have a reciprocal state visit for Xi Jinping, most likely in Florida, where the two can sit down. Now, my outlook has been all along that this meeting in Beijing and all of the meetings that have been taking place at the working group level are truly trying to lead to a much more substantive agreement of what is referred to as a fourth communique. China and the United States have had only 3 communiques, which is the, I would say, top level agreement that any 2 countries can have. And the very first communique that was reached was in 1972 when Nixon first came to China, and they agreed on a renewing of the relationship between China, the mainland, and the United States. Then there was another one in 1979 where this was formalized, and then again in 1983, that one dealt specifically with Taiwan. A fourth communique, I suspect, is going to be much broader. Taiwan will be addressed. I think Taiwan will be discussed this week, but there will be things such as artificial intelligence, finding a way to be able to work together on, call it controls or what have you, nuclear non-proliferation, probably issues with regard to global trade and the like. I think it will be a significant agreement that I believe the parties are truly trying to work towards. But that was never going to be on the agenda for this meeting. It was meant to be a working group and a principal conversation that would lead ultimately to a fourth communique that would take place later this year during Xi Jinping's trip to the United States. So there's a lot of moving parts. I want to reiterate, I think it's super important that nobody, including myself, has any real concrete understanding of what will happen this week. But I do believe that going in with lowered expectations is the best approach. And then finally, and I would just caution everybody, be mindful when you are consuming anybody who is going to be weighing in or providing their opinion on this meeting from the week ahead. Most people are going to take whatever the outcome is and they're going to match it with their, what we call priors. If they like China or they like Trump, they're going to say, oh, this is what happened and this is good for X. I don't believe most people are going to look at this from an objective vantage point, which for me is always a concern. But treat most commentary about this week's events with a degree of caution, and I think get as much information from as many different sources as possible and reach your own conclusion.